I'll tell you that that's probably going to change. Matter of fact, it has changed already. Many of you are aware. I suspect some of you have dealt with Medical Research and Material Command. I won't ask for a show of hands, but I think that either in the TATRIC area or as part of a firm, you perhaps were involved. Some of you may have been involved in DARPA projects. But these are the three big areas, and I'm not an expert on DARPA, and I don't know whether they're represented at this meeting, but yeah, DARPA is really focused on quantum leaps. They are really looking at transformative technologies. They are willing to, in a high-stakes poker game, they play for really high stakes, and when they have something to pay off, then there's a chance that it's going to pay big dividends for all of us. On the other side of this slide, Medical Research and Material Command, we are driven by requirements which relate to those gaps that you saw on the previous slide. We have a tendency to make smaller investments. We're probably not out there quite as far sometimes, looking as far into the future as the DARPA folks are. And then in the middle, we have the TATRIC and the Congressionally Directed Medical Research Program. These tend to be fairly small awards. They usually have a congressional sponsor. Usually the congressional sponsor has an intended recipient, or at least a zip code where the money is supposed to go. And again, tend to be fairly small investments, but sometimes when accumulated over years, you can put together a pretty good research program. But as you're aware, for FY 2011, there are no real earmarks in that area. And so the incubator function, the relatively small investments, many of which would not pay off, but some of which might then go into the core funding or even evolve into DARPA programs, we can't support nearly as many of those as we have in the past. At TATRIC right now, we have a total of 79 projects. They're all relatively small, very few over a couple $1 million. But we do have 60 patents filed or issued as a result of the efforts in TATRIC. Now, on the right side I guess you're looking at it. The right side is the requirements-driven research area director. The core funds, that is the Armed Forces Institute Regenerative Medicine Program, a $100 million investment over 5 years. And Mr. Siegel referred to that earlier. And to some of you in this room, $100 million over 5 years sounds like a lot of money. And to some of the rest of you in this room, $100 million over 5 years doesn't sound like all that much money. I understand that. For us, it's a lot of money. And for us to get that kind of money to launch a program in 2008, rather than having to start off small and build up as we went along, was really quite an accomplishment. And some would say, well, if taking care of these kids hurt in Iraq and Afghanistan is such a big deal, General Gilman, how come there's not more money there? Or how come it's not growing faster? And I don't have a really good answer for you, but I would say that the amount of money in any medical R&D program is always balanced with the research and development done in other areas of the Department of Defense. And so if I had money to invest, I have to make a decision about trying to push regenerative medicine technologies further down the road, or I have to make a decision about doing research and development on the equipment that soldier wears or on the vehicles that they're operating in, which might enable me to prevent some of these horrific injuries. I would just tell you that there are a lot of people inside the building that struggle with those decisions. From my perspective, they don't always get them just exactly right, but I've yet to find any of them who are trying their best to understand what we do so that they could help us, but especially in our current fiscal environment, there are going to be some very, very hard choices made. We have asked for, instead of $20 million going forward for Affirm 2, we have asked for $35 million a year in the President's budget. We'll see whether we get that or not. The mission of Regenerative Medicine and Medical Research and Material Command is to discover, develop, and translate regenerative medicine technologies having both near and far-term translation potential. And like you, I was just amazed at Dr. Yanich's presentation. But I will tell you that the people that I work for that are responsible for that $20 million a year, that $35 million a year we've asked for helping us advocate for that amount of money, they're not terribly excited about those presentations. What they want to see is technologies that can be used for soldiers. They are interested in things that we can get to the FDA and we can actually get out and use to solve some of these problems. By their